For those of you that don't know, the silent killer is high blood pressure. In my case, it's extremely high blood pressure, which led to multi organ failure. So sit back and relax, and I'm going to tell you my story. So on August 29th, I flew from my home in Wales back to America because my nephew was in the hospital. And by that point, he'd been in the hospital for coming up on 3 weeks. And no one could definitively say what the heck was wrong with him. And so I was like, no, I got to be there for my friend because he and I are tight, like really, really close. I mean, our bond, our family doesn't even understand it. He's my only nephew. I'm his only aunt. So I was like, I have got to be there for my friend. And by the time I got there, he was in the hospital for another week. So he was in the hospital for a month. So cut to September 6th. This is about a few days before he got released. I started feeling like a little tickle in my throat. And I had just eaten, so I thought it was possibly something that did not go down all the way. So I was trying to like force it down with like drinking a whole bunch of water and everything, but I still felt it. And so then it progressed to like me coughing a little bit. And I was like, darn it, I caught something from one of these sick kids in the hospital because my first sign of catching like cold and flu is a cough. And then it progresses to congestion and then fever and, you know, all the good stuff. So, but I had the cough for about a week with no other symptoms. It was just the cough. So I just started taking cough drops. And then I was taking the cough drops for about a week. So that's 2 weeks of me having this cough. And then I progressed to taking cough syrup. I was like, okay, I need something a little bit more stronger. And I took Robitussin DM, extra strength, but the now I'm drowsy formula because I didn't want to be sleeping, you know, all throughout the day. And so I took the Robitussin for about another week. And my cough just kept progressing. So by this point, 3 weeks of having the cough, by the time the 4th week came around, I mean, the cough was really strong and I was coughing like throughout most of the day. I was taking a lot more cough syrup than was prescribed. It was prescribed that you take 10 milliliters every 4 hours. And I was taking more than that at least every hour because I didn't even use the measuring cup anymore. I just started drinking from the bottle because this cough was so bad. But I didn't want to see a doctor there because I was like, I'm just going to wait until I get back home to Wales and see my doctor here because I have insurance in Wales. I don't have insurance in America. It doesn't make sense for me to keep insurance in America because I don't live there. And, you know, for my UK friends, you know, you guys get automatic insurance, you know, through the government, whereas in America, we have to pay for health insurance. I didn't want to pay for insurance that I wasn't going to be there to use. So I just kept putting off going to a doctor. Cut to October the 10th. I tried to lay down and go to sleep. And every time I laid down, I started coughing my lungs out. Like I felt, it got so bad that my gag reflex was triggered. And towards the end of the cough, I'd be like, like, so I thought my lungs were going to come up out of my mouth. I thought I was going to throw up. So I went to my bathroom. And if you imagine like my arm is being the tub, toilet's right next to it. So I just leaned against the tub because I was like, okay, I'm going to throw up. So if I do, then the toilet's right there. And, you know, I won't be making a mess in the house. So but I was sitting there. Nothing happened. No cough. No feeling like I need to throw up. So I was like, okay, it's over. I'm going to go back and try to go to sleep. Laid down again. Same thing happened. I'm coughing, and gagging. Go back to the bathroom, nothing happens. I'm like, okay, well, when I'm sitting up, I'm fine. So I decided to just go to sleep sitting up. And that's what I did. And, you know, unconsciously, while you're sleeping, your body moves to put you in the most comfortable position. And so I slid down, you know, the bed. And once I got back flat, I started coughing up again and gagging, and I've been coughing so much that I got short of breath. It was difficult for me to breathe. So I was like, okay, you know what? This is not normal. I can't wait until I get back to Wales. I'm going to the hospital. Had my dad take me to the hospital, and I was like, you know what? Just go home and wait for me. I'll call when I'm ready to be picked up because it's just a cough. And you know, every time you go to the emergency room, you're always going to be in there for the longest time, even for the simplest thing. And I knew that he had to go to work the next day. So I was just like, you know, just leave me. I'll call the house when I'm ready to come home. So put on my symptoms, why I came into the ER, persistent cough, shortness of breath. So they finally take me back to the triage room to, get my vitals and all that stuff. And the nurse looks at my vitals and she goes, and I was like, what does that mean? She runs to the hallway, and I don't remember her name, but for the purposes of this conversation, let's just say Nancy, okay? She's like, Nancy, come here, hurry up. Nancy runs in. Nancy is the nurse practitioner. And Nancy runs in, she's like, what's wrong? And my nurse says, she can't stay here. She's tachycardic. And I was like, what does tachycardic mean? And so Nancy, like, her eyes bulged out. She goes, let me go see if a trauma room's available. And I'm like, a trauma room for what? Like, first of all, I watch Grey's Anatomy. I know what trauma rooms are for, okay? I was not in a trauma. Like, there's no gunshot wound that I have. I was not in a car accident. Like, I'm not having a heart attack because I feel perfectly fine. I'm sitting up talking to you. So why the heck do we need a trauma room? She runs back and she goes, trauma 2 is open. So they're pushing me down the hall, and I'm like, and I asked again, like, what is tachycardia? I said, what does tachycardic mean? And they go, the doctor will explain everything to you. So I just pulled it up on my phone. I was like, you know what? Google will tell me something. And it said tachycardia means that your heart is pumping very fast and irregularly, and you have high blood pressure. And so I'm like, well, that's not a need to go to trauma. I'm probably coughing really fast and hard. My heart's probably beating really fast because I've been coughing my lungs out all night. Like, it's not a reason to take up a trauma room. Like, what if someone out there has a car accident? They can't get a trauma room because I'm taking it up and don't need it. So finally the doctor comes in. And she, they listen with the stethoscope, and she goes, your kidneys aren't functioning properly. And I'm like, how do you know that? All you have is a stethoscope. You don't have any kind of test done on me to say that my kidneys aren't working. Like, what do you mean? And so then she goes, all right, we're going to get an IV in you, get some blood out, and take it to the lab to see what's going on. And she tells the nurse, tell them to rush the results. I need it immediately. And I'm like, is that bad? And so then she comes with the syringe and she goes, this is blood pressure medication because your pressure's too high. We got to get it to lower. And I was like, okay. So she sticks it in my IV, and it worked instantaneously. Because I felt it, and I told her, I said, I'm lightheaded. And she checks my blood pressure. She goes, well, it can't be the medication because your blood pressure is still high. And I was like, no, I'm really lightheaded. And then boom, I fainted on the table because it dropped my pressure. I heard them talking later. It dropped it from, when I went in there, my blood pressure was 245 over 186. It dropped my blood pressure from 245 down to 132 over 70. Instantaneously. It dropped it way too fast, which is why I fainted. And so I finally came back around, and I hear them talking, and the nurse practitioner is reading off the results to the doctor. And then she goes, her kidneys. Now, everybody knows that's a universal signal. When somebody does this, that means kaput, gone, like nothing, And so, apparently while I was out, they did a chest x-ray on me because I saw the doctor holding up the x-ray, and she goes, look at these are chest infiltrates. It's heart failure. And I was like, what? How did I came in here for a cough? How did I all of a sudden have heart and kidney failure? Like, what are you talking about? And by that point, I sat up, and it was so difficult for me to breathe. So they put an oxygen cannula in my nose, and I was like, what do you mean heart failure? Like, I was just coughing. And she goes, the cardiologist will explain everything to you. So my cardiologist came in. If you are ever in Gwinnett Medical Center in Atlanta, well, I was in the Lawrenceville one, ask for Dr. Vitalevsky because he is absolutely amazing. That's who I had. And he was telling me that my heart is enlarged and only functioning at 80% as opposed to 100%. And he didn't know why. And he's described it as like a volcano. Like, you don't know there's a problem. You don't know that the volcano is active until it erupts. And my volcano erupted. And, the volcano will shoot out ash as a warning sign to let you know that it's going to erupt. And it did. I had the cough, but I misinterpreted it as something else. So they ran all sorts of tests on me, him and my nephrologist. If you don't know, a nephrologist is a kidney doctor. And my nephrologist was Dr. Vermani. Amazing. If you're at Gwinnett Medical Center and something's wrong with your kidneys, you ask for Dr. Vermani because he's great. They ran loads of tests on me, you guys. I'm talking like so many that my nurse said he'd been a nurse for years and he hadn't even heard of some of these tests. And they also did a lung scan on me because, again, I couldn't breathe well. So they were looking for blood clots because of all the travel that I had done. Like just prior to going to Atlanta to be with my nephew, I had been in Dubai and South Africa. And in 2 cities in South Africa, I flew from here to Dubai, then from Dubai to Johannesburg. Stayed in Johannesburg about 5 days. Then I went from Johannesburg, flew to Cape Town. Stayed in Cape Town another 5 days. Then flew back to Dubai, and then from Dubai back to the UK. And I had only been here for about a week and a half, and then I flew to Atlanta. So they were thinking maybe I had blood clots. So they did the lung scan to figure out maybe that's why I couldn't breathe. No blood clots. And so also you guys, the reason why I couldn't breathe was because my lungs were full of fluid. They took off more than 6 liters of fluid from my lungs. And once all that fluid was gone, then I could breathe. So I have pulmonary edema. So at this point, here I am, 30 years old, relatively healthy, and I have heart failure, kidney failure, and pulmonary edema, and they can't figure out why. And I mean, the thing is, they couldn't understand why, because I had none of the telltale signs of heart failure. I had no weight gain. I had no swelling in my legs, feet, or ankles. I had no shortness of breath. I mean, I did get the shortness of breath, but that was only because I was coughing too much that it finally made it difficult for me to breathe. And then with the cough, a cough is a sign of heart failure, but it's a producing cough, meaning that it produces, say, like a frothy substance in your mouth. I didn't have that. I had a dry cough. So they couldn't figure out why a relatively healthy 30-year-old was going through this. And I know I'm pretty healthy because I've been a tennis player. I've won divisional championships. I walk 1 hour each way just to get to and from work. So what the heck's going on? And they tested me for lupus, because lupus likes to attack, internal organs. And by that point, I think I'd been in the hospital for about 4 days. I was hoping that it was lupus. I was praying that it was lupus because, I mean, I know that sounds crazy. Like, who wants lupus? But I got tired of hearing, I don't know. Like, I got tired of hearing, I'm not sure why this happened. I don't know yet. We're still running tests. So if it was lupus, then it would have told me something. I would have had a diagnosis and we would have known how to proceed forward. Because, I mean, lupus is very manageable. It's not a death sentence anymore. I mean, Toni Braxton has lupus. She's still touring. One of my best friends, her fiance has lupus, and he's doing incredibly well. So, I mean, I was like, please be lupus. Wasn't lupus, just my luck, right? So what they were able to determine was that the kidney failure is the result of the heart failure because, my kidneys had to work too hard. And same thing as the pulmonary edema, result of heart failure. And they believe that my heart failure was was high blood pressure that went unchecked for too long. So, and the thing is though, right before I went to South Africa, August 11th, and late July, like July 30th, I went to get, vaccinations for South Africa, and they checked on my blood pressure, and my nurse didn't see any cause for concern, so she didn't tell me that my blood pressure was high. So I was thinking that I was, okay and normal. Because multi-organ failure, you guys. And so now I am adjusting to my new normal. I take 7 pills every single day, and one day a week I take an 8th pill because I'm iron deficient and vitamin D deficient. So I have to take pills for that. But my vitamin D I only have to take once a week. So there's that. But I'm adjusting very well. I have to check my blood pressure every single day. I have my own blood pressure monitor that I had to buy. Make sure that it's the cuff. If you're going to check at home, you want the cuff. That's the best one as opposed to the wrist one. I think they have one that they put on your finger too. But you want the cuff that goes on your arm is what Dr. Vitulevsky told me. And taking my pills, so I'm doing okay. My heart function is steady at 80%. My kidney function is holding steady at 40%. I know those numbers sound really bad, like 40 and 80 is not a lot, but it's not nothing. And I'm doing okay with that. My pulmonary edema, I'm managing, but I have to make a complete lifestyle change. I have to really monitor my sodium intake. I even have to monitor my fluids. I can't have any more than 2 liters of fluid a day. No, not 2 liters. I'm sorry. 1.5 liters of fluid a day. Like 2 liters is what they recommend for most people to have, about 2 liters of fluid a day, which would be like a little more than 8 cups. I can only have 1.5 liters, which is slightly more. It's like 6.3 cups, but even the 6 cups is still on the high end because my heart is pumping so hard that it already pumps fluid into my lungs. So me drinking like that will back up into my lungs too. And I do have a pulmonary edema medicine to expel it, but I actually feel when I get too much fluid on my lungs. And it's not a nice feeling, so I have to be very careful about that. But, some things that I've taken for granted, I can't really do anymore, such as walking. Like I was in Costco right before I came home with my mom and my nephew, and I had to take a break. Like I was leaning against the shelf, my chest hurt, I couldn't get enough oxygen in, I was a little lightheaded. Because, I was overdoing it, with the pulmonary edema. And my doctor told me that that's normal. You're not going to be able to be as active as you once were. But with some time, and building up some more endurance again, I should be able to get somewhere close to where I was, But again, it's my new normal that I'm dealing with. On the bright side, though, I no longer have to walk through airports. I get driven to the gate and priority boarding. That's not nothing. That's something. And then also when I came back here, I had to go through customs, wheelchair through customs. The people who are in the chairs that get the wheelchairs, you get priority through customs. So that's something. And it is what it is. Everybody has something that they have to go through in life. And this is my personal storm, and I'm trying to weather it, I can't say that I've always taken it in stride, and, I've had some moments where I broke down into crying fits because I'm like, how the heck is this fair? I'm 30 years old in heart failure, kidney failure, pulmonary edema, and it's all acute. It's acute. There's no other reason for it, but I mean, like I said, we all go through something, and this is my something. But I told you all of this in the hopes that you would please, please, please get your blood pressure checked. Even though I'm laughing about it and I'm smiling, multi-organ failure is not a joke. I have to take these pills for the rest of my life to stay alive. I have to follow up with the cardiologist and the nephrologist every single month just to make sure that the medication is working and that I'm, the function of my heart and kidneys is holding steady. So you don't want this life. Please, please, please make sure your blood pressure is in check. And your blood pressure, your top number, you don't want to be any higher than 120. And your bottom number, you don't want to be any higher than 99. So if you're just slightly above that, that means you're pre-hypertensive. But if you're like in the 140s, 150s, then that's hypertension, and you definitely want to get that taken care of. Even if it's through medication, I mean, it's not fun, but neither is multi-organ failure, neither is dying. I'm pretty sure that's not fun. So definitely get checked out and live your best life. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope that it inspires you to get checked. Bye, guys.